Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I'll be reviewing the WZ-122, which is the recently released premium Chinese Era 2 Eastern Alliance medium tank. Before we get into the main subject of today's video, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to everyone out there for helping me get over the 500 subscriber mark. And yeah, I only have all of you to thank for that, and in celebration and to say massive thank you to everyone out there for subscribing and supporting me, I'm doing the biggest giveaway I've been able to do on this channel. All of the prizes that you'll be able to win are in my pinned comment on this video. All you have to do to enter is comment with your gamertag and your platform. The draw will be taking place on the 18th of March at 10 PM GMT. So yeah, good luck to everyone. 1,000 subscribers is the next goal, and I hope that I get there just as fast as I've got over the 500 subscriber mark. But yeah, thanks to everyone. It's been a real enjoyable sort of grind to get over the 500 subscriber mark, and it hasn't really been a grind, it's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed making the videos, and I hope that everyone has taken something from it. So getting on to today's topic, the WZ-122. The gold price is 16,950 for the absolute top package with all the bells and whistles, but the base price is 11,300, which is quite reasonable considering the price of some of the World War II premium tanks, and I highly recommend this tank. I'll say that straight off the bat, and I'll talk about why in today's video. Being a premium tank, it earns 50% extra silver, 10% extra XP, and 25% extra commander XP. It has 2,560 hit points, which is the lower end of the Era 2 hit point scale, and it has 480 meters view range, which you can get up to a fairly decent level. In terms of its mobility, it isn't too bad. It's a little bit sluggish compared to some of the Cold War tanks. It's got a 690 horsepower engine with an 18.43 power to weight ratio. Unfortunately, you can only go 55 kilometers an hour forwards, and the reverse speed at 22.5 kilometers an hour backwards is fairly sluggish in Cold War terms. However, the traverse is pretty good on the whole at 46 degrees a second, and on your turret it's 36 degrees a second. And now we get on to the main selling point, in my opinion, of this tank, and that is the multiple weapon system that this tank is able to make use of. And I'm going to be talking about the multiple weapon system and my thoughts on it in a video coming up soon, where I'm going to be talking about the BMP2, the Eastern Alliance Era 2 light tank. But it has a 120mm gun as well as a 4-round ATGM autoloader, and the damage potential that you're able to put out means that, in my opinion, this is one of, if not the best, one-on-one engagement tanks in Cold War, tier for tier, and you are absolutely devastating. But yeah, let's get on to the weapons that you have and the ammunition choices. So you have a 120mm gun, which is absolutely phenomenal. The penetration does let it down. It's 372 millimeters of penetration on the standard APF SDS rounds. However, you do have 440 millimeters of heat should you so wish to use it, and on the HE it's 130 millimeters of penetration. The alpha damage is 470 on the standard and the premium rounds, and 610 on the HE. One of the best things about this tank is the shell velocity on the standard APF SDS rounds. It's 1615 meters a second, meaning that you don't have to give much lead at all, even at long ranges. And this thing, when you fully aim and you get a good commander and you choose the right equipment, this thing shoots like a laser and it gets to the target in no time at all. The heat is a little bit slower at 950 meters a second, and the HE is even slower at 905, so you do have to watch out for that. You have a 7.32 rounds a minute, which gives you a DPM of 3,440, which is nice on the 120mm. You have a base reload of 8.2 seconds, a 2-second aim time, 0.36 accuracy, and one downside to this tank is the gun depression at only 5 degrees. However, you do have 20 degrees of elevation, which is usable, so you have to make do on the ridge lines and try and find places to be able to use the gun depression of this tank and go hold down, or use your environment to be able to wedge your tank up and get your gun on target. You carry 40 rounds of ammunition, which I found is plenty to get through pretty much every battle. In terms of the ATGMs, you have a 4-round autoloader, like I said, with a 10-second intra-clip reload. The penetration is quite low for ATGM penetration at 460mm, but the alpha is beautiful at 850 alpha. The one major downside to the ATGMs is the shell velocity at only 120 meters a second, meaning that they are best used at short to mid range in my opinion. In terms of the DPM on the ATGMs, it's 3000 DPM, which is pretty good with a 38-second reload, 1 second aim time, 0.34 accuracy. You carry 8 rounds, so enough for 2 full magazines of the ATGM autoloader. And the best bit about this multiple weapon system is that they reload at the same time, meaning that you can switch just by holding down your A button or whatever you have programmed to use, and you're just able to switch instantly. So you put an ATGM to someone, you switch, put a shot in, and then you can switch back to your ATGMs, and in an all-in engagement, this tank is absolutely phenomenal, and you can rack up damage extremely quickly. I've picked up like 6k damage before in such a short space of time, and then I've got taken out, but I've had a monumental impact on the battle. In terms of the armour, there's not too much to shout about. You've got 240 on the front of the turret, 150 on the sides and 65 on the rear, so you will get some ricochets, but you can't rely on it. And the hull is 100mm on the upper and lower plate, meaning that you will get buttered by pretty much everything in Cold War, so don't rely on the armour, just use your firepower and your mobility and try and get round your enemies and take them down that way. In terms of my equipment and commander then, I run advanced loader, gun stabilizer and traction system because I want to improve my mobility. And on my commander I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Rapid Aim, Run and Gun, Situational Awareness and Armour Angling. So in that battle we finish MVP with 7.4k direct damage, 5 kills, 716 assistance, and we make 276,000 silver. So we're going to hop on now into the second replay and I'll talk you through what I'm doing there. Right then, we're into the second replay of the video here on Kaunas, and I'll just talk you through the effect that my commander and equipment setup has had on my tank's statistics. I now have a 533 meters view range, which I found is more than adequate. My still concealment is 366 meters, which isn't the best, it isn't the worst, but I found that the main selling point, the firepower of this tank, along with your mobility, means that you still perform exceptionally well. In terms of the effect that my commander and equipment setup has had on my gun, in terms of my 120mm, the DPM is now 4,432, which is really nice, and the DPM on the ATGMs is 3,867. On the 120mm now I have a 1.92 second aim time and a 0.26 accuracy, and the gun performs really well. You'll see a few shots derp here and there, and you'll see that at the start of this replay. I think it's my 3rd or 4th shot in, but apart from that I found that if you let this thing fully aim and you lead your shots well, you will penetrate if you're shooting the right spots. The penetration is slightly low, but I think that the firepower and the capabilities of that tank make up for that low penetration on the 120mm and on the ATGMs. And yeah, if you flank your enemy, shoot weak spots, you'll do really well. So here on Kaunas, at the start of this battle, you see me come to this centre location here in C6. I've got hard cover to the right of me and I'm able to poke round, spot things that are down that zero line on that little hill there, and I'm also able to shoot tanks that are heading towards our base. Unfortunately here the guns just playing me up slightly. I'm not sure if it's to do with some of the modelling on that building, but eventually we do get a shot into the back of this T-72, and I'm just trying to preserve my hit points at the moment, sniping where I'm able to, and I'm going to preserve my hit points and then go in a little bit later on to the mid and later stages of this battle to use my hit points to trade with opponents, and that's what this tank can do exceptionally well. You can trade really nicely with enemy tanks. You have that capability to switch with that multi-weapon system straight to your ATGMs, back to your 120mm, and with that 4-shot autoloader and the 10-second intricate reload, you are oh so powerful, and that's the kind of thing that you can do to an enemy light tank. And we're already up to 2.1k damage, and you pick up damage really quickly with this tank. I found that at the start, although I was having some good damage numbers, I was rushing into positions, one-on-oneing tanks too quickly and getting surrounded, and then I had to wait for my ATGMs to reload. And yeah, you'll see me there trying to free aim an ATGM, and I completely miss. However, I'm going to go after this light tank and try and get him out of the game. And as you can see here, the armor's not holding up for me, but we do eventually take out that light tank there, and we're up to 2.7k direct damage. And now I'm on a ridge line, which means that I'm going to have trouble with my gun depression. So you're seeing I'm having to expose slightly more of my tank than I'd want to. The ATGM derps into the ridgeline there. I don't know if that's my aim or the modelling of the building. I'm just going to go for Wargaming's modelling of the rock there, but it's more than likely my aim, isn't it? But having said that, our ATGMs will be reloaded very quickly, so it's not really a problem. And I'm just going to try and be tentative going around this corner. I'm trying to look around using the free camera to see where the enemy tanks are. And now I have the side and the rear of these tanks here. I'm going to make full use of it. Auto aiming is a viable option in this tank if they are still and you've got the sides and the rear of your enemies, because the shell velocity is so good, and it means that if you are someone that does struggle with their aim, leading targets with this tank shouldn't be too much of an issue, and you're able to practice with this tank and get better because the shell velocity is so good. And you'll see in here just how quickly you pick up damage. We're already up to 5.7k damage here, and we're getting some nice rolls. We fire a one shot with our 120mm at that Centurion Mark V, follow up with a 120mm, and yeah, he's down now, and that's another tank out of the game, and it's still an even game, and we're already up to just shy of 7k damage. You'll see in here that I'm having to expose far more of my tank than I'd want to. I think I probably just said that, but we'll go for that again. Unfortunately, that's something that you've got to do when there's sort of slight inclines and a little bit of a ridge line. We fire ATGM there too early, try and swivel it round the dead wreck there. Unfortunately, we don't, and we're going to sort of try and side scrape out and see how our armour holds up. You have 80mm of side armour, and it's not going to go too well when you're side scraping out against opponents, but I'm trying to minimise the target and the silhouette that the enemies have to fire against. And this is when preserving your hit points at the start of the battle really comes into its own. You're able to sort of trade blows at the end of the battle and take more shots than you would really want to, but you're able to stay alive. And talking about FE Pr0-x, which I've just put a video out on earlier today as I'm recording this video, this is the kind of tank that the FE Pr0-x will dominate if it's allowed to sit in front of it, purely because of the penetration issues, and the APCR will just bounce off a lot of parts of the FE Pr0-x. If you're trying to fire heat with this thing at FE Pr0-x, you will also get your shells absorbed most of the time, so you're going to have to try and flank and get to the sides of the tank, as you'll see me trying to do here. Switch to my ATGMs, I'm going to go for the rear of the turret, and I think that might have gone into the turret ring there, where we get a shell in for over 700 damage, and I've got my ATGMs loaded. I've got one more left. He's only on 264 hit points, and we managed to finish that FE Pr0-x off, and that's probably one of the nemesis of this tank. But then, having said that, isn't that kind of the nemesis of pretty much every tank in Era 2? But that's the end of that game, and we have a great result, picking up 7.9k direct damage, 4 kills, 523 assistance. We blocked 645, 1743 base experience points, which is really nice. Make 270,000 silver, and another cracking game. So we're going to head on now into the third and final replay, which is my best game I've had in this tank yet. So we're now into the final replay of the video, and we're here on Heilbronn. And like I said at the start of this video, I highly recommend this tank. It suits my playstyle. I think that it has enough negatives to outweigh the massive damage potential, meaning that it's quite well balanced. I think that it's extremely powerful in a good player's hands, more so than most other tanks, because of that sort of 4-shot ATGM plus the gun and the multi-weapon system intertwined, meaning you can absolutely wreck things very quickly. But I think for the casual, for the average player, it's still going to perform well, but it won't be overpowered and it won't ruin the matchmaker or anything like that. And it does take some practice getting used to the gun depression and the slow shell velocity of the ATGMs. But then you also have something good like the fast shell velocity of the 120mm. So I think it's well balanced. I think it's a very fun and enjoyable tank, and it's up to you whether it's worth the gold. And I think I'd just like to say, in terms of the gold price, obviously you have World War II tanks that cost the same or just a little bit less, and this makes twice as much silver. And if you enjoy Cold War, then this one might be the tank for you. So as you can see, that T72 didn't last very long at all. We put a shot in with our 120mm and our ATGM, and yeah, now we're already up to 2k damage. And this tank can pick up damage so quickly, you can get yourself into trouble too early on and rush in and play aggressively and become reckless because you feel like you're unstoppable with your firepower. I pushed myself to the limit in my play session, and I still managed a 56% win rate, which was quite poor for the damage output that I was putting out. And I think that if you played this a little bit more sensibly, like I'm starting to now, then you'll have an even bigger impact and you'll have even better battles. And one good thing about this tank is your ability to bait opponents, because I think a lot of players probably aren't aware of what this tank is, that it has the multiple weapon system, and I think they come around thinking you fired your shot. They didn't realise that you've got an ATGM and 3 others to go alongside it, and yeah, you can bait people around corners and they can push you and they get absolutely annihilated for it. And here we're just sitting here, we're struggling to use our gun depression a little bit, so I'm using the flattest ground possible. We miss our shell there on the armadillo at close range, which is just bad aim on my part. I shouldn't be missing that with the with the fast shell velocity that this tank has. But look, we've already picked up 3.7k direct damage and 2.7k assistance, so I'm not going to be too harsh on myself. It's a relatively even game. We're up on numbers. I'm just trying to get these tanks to sort of push over a little bit. I know I've got a few tanks behind me and I've got a heavy tank in front of me, and I'm just going to try and get shots into these tanks. So this Type 82 pushes me. We get a shot in with the 120mm. We absolutely dirt our slow shell velocity ATGM like an idiot. But the DPM of the 120mm does save us, and this armadillo's a real pain in the backside, and I'm just hoping that he drives into something and I get an easier shot, so I finally get a shot in. We free aim finally, putting a shot into that armadillo, but he is putting shot after shot into us, and that just shows you that the armor doesn't hold up well, and you can be taken out just as quickly as you can take other tanks out. We've pushed our damage total now to just shy of 6k direct damage and just shy of 3k assistance. Now we're going to try and push it over even more. We only have 564 hit points left, so I have to be a little bit careful. But I do want to try and get as much out of this game as possible and make as much silver. Unfortunately, we try and evade that shell there, but the mediocre mobility means that we do take a shot into the side of our tank, and we're just going to have to try and play a little bit more sensibly now to try and get 1 or 2 shots more in this battle. So I'm trying to advance on this FE4-211 now. and I'm just going to use the hardcover to advance. And this is where you see the horsepower and the power to weight ratio struggling a bit when you're going up a hill. I know it's a medium tank, but you know, you'd kind of want to be a little bit quicker than that. But having said that, when you do get into target, you have the ability now to derp 80 GMs into rocks. I've done that a few times, and I think it's because of the placement and where they fire from on the top of the tank, and I'm not sort of too sure of which one fires first, or whether they fire from the same launch shot on top of the vehicle. That's something that I'm going to have to try and find out. But it doesn't matter too much, because you can just switch to your 120mm straight away, and that's what's so lovely about having that multi-weapon system. And we get a lovely finish in 80 GM to finish the video off into the back of that FE4-11, finishing that OP tank off. We finish MVP with 7.7k direct damage, 3.1k assistance. We block 90 from the Armadillo, get 3 kills, 1794 base experience points, and yeah, we make a nice lot of silver again at 335, 567. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Good luck in the giveaway. Thank you all so much for your support. Until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.